When we were initially thinking about accompanying partner support as the topic for today's presentation, I began to reflect on my own experience of as an accompanying spouse and being globally mobile for over 10 years in Russia, the Middle East and America. And the question that immediately sprung to my mind was, so what's actually changed for accompanying spouses in the past 10 years, or even in the past 5 years since I've returned back to the UK? And I guess the short answer to that is, well, everything. The rise of technology, the impact of globalisation means that the global landscape has completely shifted. The traditional expatriate family model has changed. The traditional male breadwinner, female trailing spouse with kids, expatriate profile is being overtaken by the individual worker profile. The profile of the accompanying partner is also changing. More women are becoming international assignees, 23% in 2013. Now, this may not sound like a lot, but it represents a 6% rise in less than 3 years. And the proportion of male accompanying partners is also rising. This data just provides a snapshot of how this demographic shift is impacting organisations. 66% of employers state that the partner career issue impacts upon their ability to attract employees to international assignments. 51% of employers have had their employees turn down assignments due to partner career and employment issues. The term expatriate covers an ever-widening and diversifying set of individuals. Yet the evidence suggests that many organisations are slow to recognise and respond to this new reality on the ground and to adapt their partner support programmes and policies accordingly.
One of the things that we realised was that it was all very well for companies to provide cash allowances and whatever for spouses, but what we realised was that actually for many partners they actually wanted to work when they went on an international assignment. But in many cases there were work permit restrictions which prevented them from working. And I think what's striking is that there hasn't really been a huge amount of progress because I think it has, for many HR and global mobility professionals, sort of remained on the too difficult pile. Expatriates typically represent only a very small population in, say, a global organisation. So, I mean, in the firm I work for, we've got 148,000 employees globally. So if it represents 1%, you can see that, you know, there are probably plenty of other issues that are sort of taking the time and sort of energy of HR or other professionals. But we are seeing more women in employment. You know, we're all aware of the fact that, you know, more women are taking managerial positions, are going through university education, etc. So that is shifting the demographic. We're seeing more dual career couples, and particularly in the new generations coming through, if they're a partnership, then you know that they will both wish to continue their career whilst they're working internationally. So some of the challenges for expat partners, and I'm sure those of you who are partners here will, you know, be able to sort of empathise with some of these here. But you know, the whole thing about looking for a job in an unfamiliar location, that the timing of that move is very much dictated by the employee. It's not necessarily, you know, the partner's choice in terms of the timing. Trying to adapt skills to the local market, and then, you know, competing with well-qualified staff, particularly in sort of highly developed locations. It may be more difficult for a spouse or partner to get into the local market, and also whether foreign diplomas and degrees are actually recognised, or whether there needs to be a period of retraining or whatever. So quite a lot of things, you know, to confront. And really, you know, employers should be looking at providing more support to families. And making sure that you know, the type of support they're offering is much more practical, rather than just saying, well, we do pay an allowance. An allowance doesn't necessarily help get a partner into work. Okay, so the International Dual Career Network, and a little bit on how it works and what it brings to international spouses. It is this network of global companies who are, which is slowly increasing. but it provides access to HR professionals for partners. So if say they go and work in India, for instance, they may not have had access to those companies and to those HR professionals. So the whole idea of IDCN is to enable or facilitate much more sort of contact between partners and HR professionals in international companies. It's also, I think, from the employer's point of view, opening up a new talent pool, because there will be many highly qualified partners going into a location that perhaps wouldn't be normally part of that workforce that a company would actually have access to.
I think the really formative experience for the non-working accompanying partner is when they go to a dinner party for the first time as a non-working accompanying partner, and the person next to them says, "What do you do?" Every accompanying partner dreads it, and they say, "Well, I'm here supporting my spouse or my partner," and you almost see the lights going off. But I'm going to talk about some of the myths around supporting accompanying partners. The first myth is that accompanying partners who don't work don't need support. And actually, if anything, it's the opposite. They need more support, because not only are they experiencing the massive challenge of adapting to a new culture and most likely a new language, they're also adapting to a new identity. And they're often confronted with a bit of a grass is greener on the other side approach from HR, which is that they're told how lucky they are not to have to work. And so they feel guilty on top of that they're not working. They think, well, I should be feeling like I'm really lucky, but I don't. Often it's just not practical. There are all kinds of barriers, language, network. There are logistical barriers of childcare and just that idea of putting other people's needs before yourself. So just because you've chosen not to work, it doesn't mean that it's going to be an easy transition either. Local contacts, people on the ground, are very, very important and probably in some ways keep you sane when you land in a new country. But it's about more than that. And we shouldn't assume that because partners are choosing not to work, that they're going to be happy and fulfilled just with social activities. We hear a lot of talk about accompanying partners being a risk to an assignment, and certainly on one level that's very true. The biggest cause of failure is, at least anecdotally, the failure of the spouse or the family to settle. And a properly supported and engaged accompanying partner can actually be an asset to an assignment. Companies expect that accompanying partners will do a lot of stuff. They'll be there when the utilities are connected, and they'll do all kinds of bits and pieces that require presence. And if they really help to successfully settle the family in and on an ongoing basis support the objectives of the assignment, that's really important to recognize and attribute that experience to the accompanying partner.